Dawn on Saipan. The air tastes like salt and limestone. In a coral bunker, an officer speaks and thinks he's beyond the reach of any rifle on Earth. We attack at night. The Americans won't see us. This position is safe. No muzzle flash, no warning. Where did it come from? From over 1,000 yards away. A Marine sniper just rewrote the rules of war. Elevation, 11.5. Wind, quarter left, 2 minutes. Spotter, impact confirmed, 1 down. This wasn't luck, it was numbers, optics, discipline. A century of American marksmanship focused through one lens. On these islands, fear traveled faster than sound, and the rifle that carried it had a name. Springfield M1903A1 with an Unertl 8-power scope. At the Army Infantry School in Toyama, Japan taught its snipers patience, concealment, and limits. 300 meters was normal, 400 was extreme. Beyond that, targets were left to artillery and fate. The Imperial doctrine worshipped stealth. Tie yourself to a tree, wait in a spider hole, let the enemy walk into your sight at spitting distance. The rifle? A converted Arasaka with a 2.5 power scope, fogged at the edges, blurred beyond a few hundred yards. For them, 400 meters was a stretch shot. Leaders in Tokyo called it the pinnacle of infantry marksmanship. Naval landing forces carried Type 99 seconds with 4-power optics. To them, 400 meters was an impossible reach. They saw no need to go farther, and across both services ran one unshakable belief. America was soft. Its Marines carried old Springfield rifles from the Great War, outdated, outclassed, no match for the Emperor's warriors. But across the Pacific, another tradition was taking shape. At Camp Perry, Ohio, Marine marksmen spent decades turning shooting into a sport, a science, and an obsession. Here, 1,000 yards was not impossible. It was the standard. Marine teams dominated the long-range lines year after year, grouping shots tighter than a man's fist at distances. Japanese doctrine dismissed as fantasy. Out of America's competitive culture came precision tools, star-gauged barrels, match triggers, and the Unertl scope. 8-power magnification, quarter-minute clicks, sliding mounts that shrugged off recoil and held zero. One side trusted spirit and patience. The other side trusted numbers, optics, and engineering. Japan believed courage was enough, that a man tied to a tree with a 2.5-power scope could match any foe. The Marines knew better. They had learned that courage without calculation was suicide. From Guadalcanal to Okinawa, two philosophies collided. One ancient, built on spirit and ritual. The other modern, built on ballistics and math. What Japan dismissed as outdated and old Springfield had been reborn. Star-gauged barrels, match grade, 30-06 ammunition at 2,800 feet per second. Optics that turned war into arithmetic. Japan believed in spirit. America turned shooting into a science. Meet the Springfield M1903A1, not just a rifle, but a purpose-built instrument of precision. A match trigger set to about 4 pounds short. Crisp, consistent, no creep, no surprise. For a sniper, that's the difference between a first-round hit and a missed chance. Walnut stocks were hand-selected and properly bedded. In the Pacific's humidity, a warp stock meant lost zero. These were fitted by armorers to stay true. Loaded with match grade, 30-06, 172-grain boat tail. These rounds left the muzzle at roughly 2,800 feet per second. Identical rounds, identical velocities, identical flight paths. Repeatability is the secret. And then there's the scope, the Unertl 8-power. External micrometer turrets, quarter-minute clicks. Every click nudges the point of impact by a precise fraction of an inch at 100 yards. Quarter-minute of angle. That's tiny, but multiply that precision across 1,000 yards, and you get surgical accuracy. Every click is a promise. Wind hold set, elevation dialed, ready on your mark. Hold there.
2 clicks left, steady.
Watch the Mirage left drift. Compensate 2 clicks. The Unertl's sliding mount was a small but crucial innovation. It let the scope move rearward under recoil, protecting the optics, then return to exact battery. In long shooting sessions, that durability kept zero when lesser mounts would shift. 8 times magnification with a wide, clear field of view, roughly an 11-foot window at 100 yards, meant you could identify details that others simply couldn't. Samurai swords, insignia, small gestures of command, visible where the enemy thought themselves safe. Every click, a quarter minute, every round, identical. It wasn't luck, it was math. Precision isn't poetry, it's replication. Barrels matched to standards, triggers set the same, ammunition measured to tenths of a grain, optics engineered to hold true. On a Pacific ridgeline, all of that added up to one brutal truth. Some shots could be counted on before they were even fired. Tools don't win wars by themselves, but in skilled hands, with the numbers right, they turn a rifle into a battlefield calculator and they turn a shooter into a force multiplier. Guadalcanal, 1942. Japanese officers fell mid-sentence, a crack, 2 seconds of silence, then panic. The bullet always landed before the sound arrived. A Japanese soldier wrote in his diary, "Death came from nowhere. The sound only reached us after our officer was already gone." For men trained to believe 400 meters was extreme, being killed at 800 or 900 felt like sorcery. Tarawa, 1943.
The island's vital airfield became the stage for a critical
Across
engagement
the airfield,
as Japanese
Special
forces
Naval Landing
prepared
Forces
their defense.
tried to rush Marines. At 900, 1,000, even 1,200 yards, invisible rifles tore through their ranks. No machine guns, no artillery. Just precision fire from Marines they couldn't even see. Survivors whispered of death rays, demon eyes that could pierce the jungle itself. By Saipan, 1944, the Japanese had learned to fear the scope itself. Officers stripped insignia, hid their swords, and spent daylight underground. One glance through an 8-power Unertl meant instant death. Lieutenant Frank Tuchovsky and his 40 thieves didn't just kill, they hunted, systematically removing leaders, one by one, across the battlefield. It was mathematics and patience, turning the enemy's hierarchy into a list of names crossed out one shot at a time. Peleliu. Marines threaded bullets through firing ports, cave embrasures, and ventilation slots. 1,000 yards away, yet precise as surgery. Okinawa. Snipers took on a new mission, overwatching civilians. When Japanese soldiers tried to use families as shields, Marine marksmen delivered shots that separated killers from innocents. No artillery could have done that. Only optics, math, and restraint. From island to island, one rifle and one scope shaped entire campaigns. They silenced officers mid-speech. They froze battalions on open ground. They forced an enemy steeped in Bushido to hide in caves. And they safeguarded civilians in the crossfire. One rifle, one scope, one Marine. Shaping battles not with numbers, not with artillery, but with a single shot, placed with surgical precision. For the Japanese, to die by a sniper's bullet was shameful. There was no duel, no clash of swords, only sudden death from the unseen. Rumors spread of death rays, of demon eyes that saw through jungle and stone, of invisible bullets that killed from beyond the clouds. Some soldiers performed Shinto rituals before patrols, believing they faced not men but spirits, not rifles but curses. They noticed the sequence. The body fell first. The sound came later. One diary read, "Death traveled faster than sound, silent first, thunder later." It wasn't just bullets, it was fear itself. The fear of being watched, marked, chosen. The fear that leadership, courage, even faith meant nothing under an American scope. To the Marines, it was calculation. To the Japanese, it was supernatural. A single rifle, turning warriors into prey, and war itself into mathematics. Behind every shot was a Marine, Corporal Daniel Maddox on Saipan. He lay a mile away, steady on the trigger, when a Japanese colonel's staff officer fell. His skill wasn't born in war, but honed on America's rifle ranges. Gunnery Sergeant Mitchell Barnes. On Bloody Ridge, 1942, he pulled the trigger at nearly 1,000 yards. The target, an operations officer, never saw the bullet. For Barnes, it was one more careful entry in a data book. For the Japanese brigade, it was chaos. Corporal Robert Holmes, Saipan. He studied the trade winds, the shimmer off coral, the way humidity bent a bullet's
left, wind is
path.
shifting.
His spotter called the wind. Holmes dialed 2 clicks. Seconds later, an enemy officer dropped. Science and patience, disguised as instinct. They weren't magicians, they were competitors. Camp Pendleton trained them in concealment and patience. But Camp Perry, the 1,000-yard line, gave them the confidence that distance was just another number. Many came from farms in Ohio, Kentucky, the Midwest. They'd grown up shooting at fence posts and deer. The Marine Corps handed them star-gauged barrels and Unertl optics and turned farm boys into battlefield mathematicians. In their data books, war looked like equations, wind speeds, holds, trajectories. But in their hearts, they carried something else. The weight of knowing each shot rewrote a battle. Each squeeze of the trigger chose who lived, who died. They were not faceless ghosts, nor cold machines. They were young Americans, sharpshooters, shaped by competition, hardened by war. And on the ridges of the Pacific, they proved that one man, one rifle, one scope could shape history. When World War II ended, the rifles were stacked, the scopes packed away. But the lesson was clear. Precision at 1,000 yards could change wars. From the coral ridges of Saipan to the rifle ranges of California, the Corps formalized what war had proven. The first dedicated sniper schools were born, doctrine written in sweat and blood.
Focus on your
2
breathing,
decades
Marine.
later, that legacy resurfaced in the rice paddies of
sight
Vietnam.
picture.
The rifle had changed. Winchester Model 70 seconds replaced Springfield's, but the scope was the same. Unertl's 8-power glass, born on American ranges, still ruled the battlefield. Gunnery Sergeant Carlos Hathcock, the White Feather, 73 confirmed kills. His Unertl carried him through feats that became legend. In one moment, he looked through an enemy's scope, then fired straight through it. A bullet meeting another lens, a sniper killing a sniper with surgical finality. It was the same science of angles and glass perfected in the Pacific. Chuck Mawhinney followed. 103 confirmed kills, a Marine who turned jungle firefights into lessons in patience. Again, the Unertl lens gave him reach, and the doctrine of World War II gave him discipline. From coral ridges to rice paddies, from Garand-era Marines to M40 bolt actions, the Unertl legacy lived on. It was never just glass and steel, it was a philosophy. That war could be reduced to numbers, that courage alone could not defeat calculation. Today, Marines still carry that inheritance.
To rice paddies,
every wind call,
from
every data
Garand-era
book,
Marines
every patient
to
trigger
M40
squeeze
bolt
traces back
actions,
to Camp Perry
the
and
Unertl
those
legacy
Pacific
lived
islands.
on.
From Saipan to Vietnam to the deserts of the Middle East, the math
Today,
of killing
Marines
remains the
still carry
same.
that
One
inheritance.
rifle, one scope,
Every wind
one
call,
Marine,
every
and a
data
legacy
book,
that rewrote
every
the rules of
patient
war.
trigger.
Japan entered the
From
Pacific
Saipan to
War
Vietnam
convinced
to the
that
deserts
spirit
of the Middle
alone
East,
could conquer.
the math of killing
Bushido,
remains the same.
patience, camouflaged the warrior's way. But against math, against glass, against patience refined into science, spirit was not enough. The Marines proved a different formula. Precision plus patience equals battlefield dominance. Every quarter-minute click, every wind call, every trigger squeeze measured, not guessed. That was the American way of war. From Camp Perry to Saipan, from Saipan to Vietnam, from Vietnam to today's Marines. One rifle, one scope, one Marine at a time. That's how America made death travel 1,000 yards. What began as a sport on American ranges became a science of war, and that science measured in yards, clicks, and courage rewrote history. The legacy of the Springfield M1903A1 and the Unertl scope lives on in every Marine sniper today.